What's up YouTube, this is Tubedigga. In this MPC tutorial, I'm going to show you various different ways that you can time up your samples to get them nicely in sync with your sequence. Before I get into this video, I just want to thank all my current subscribers, all my patrons on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a patron of mine on Patreon, please head over to www.patreon.com/Tubedigga. There's a link in the description. I've also got an MPC Masterclass video course. If you want, it's a higher quality, higher production, so it's definitely worth taking a look at. No adverts, and there's some techniques, tips and tricks in there that I've not yet shared online. So please do go and check that out. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so, and please hit the like button and also the bell notification symbol. All those things help to keep my channel bobbing along and increasing in numbers, and I'll be most grateful. In this first example, we're just going to take a simple drum break. We're going to edit it so it's a perfect amount of bars, and we're going to re-pitch that sample to the BPM of our choice. So this is the most fundamental or rudimentary way of changing the speed of a sample by changing its pitch. So this is really basic stuff, but I'm going to take you through this all the way through to more advanced techniques to time up your samples. So this is kind of a beginner's tutorial, but there's sure to be some techniques in here for intermediate users maybe, so please keep watching. So on my first pad, I've got a breakbeat sample. This is that sample. Okay, so as you can hear, it's 1 and a bit bars. So first of all, we can press and hold menu and press pad 13, and that will take us to sample edit. And because this is the last sample that we pressed, or the last pad that we pressed, this sample appears in the sample editor. So let's just take a look at that again. So as you can hear, all we need to do is remove the kick that comes in after the first bar, which is this kick here. So we just need to move the endpoint to there, spread our fingers on the touchscreen and zoom in as much as we can, and we can see that these little transients here, it's pretty much exactly there where we need to discard. So let's pinch our fingers together, press process in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and just choose the first option, discard. And now we should have a perfect 1 bar loop. If we press pad 16, this will play back this sample in a loop. So if we look at the bottom of the screen, towards the bottom left, you can see that it's calculated the BPM of this sample as 107.14 beats per minute. We can double check this by pressing detect and then press detect again at the bottom of the screen, and it's recalculated it to something slightly faster, 107.29. That's fine. That 0.29 really doesn't make that much difference, so we can set our sequence tempo to 107 and you're really not going to hear any difference or timing inconsistencies with that. So let's close that. So let's say we want to work with this sample but at 100 beats per minute. So let's go to the main page. Let's change our BPM to 100 beats per minute. Let's press and hold menu, go back to sample edit, which is pad 13. And let's press from BPM, just at the bottom left hand corner of the screen. And first of all, we need to change the amount of beats. So there's 4 beats in a bar. So let's reduce this by turning our data wheel anti-clockwise to 4 beats. And you can see that it's showing the BPM as 107.29. Now what we need to do now is press match. What match will do is it will retime this break to 100 beats per minute, which is our sequence tempo. If we press to sequence, it will change our sequence to match the BPM of this sample. So our sequence will change to 107.29. But we want to work with this sample at 100 beats per minute. So if I press match, and if you take a look at the very bottom left hand corner of the sample editor, you'll see that it's reduced the pitch of this sample by minus 1.22 semitones. So if I press on that and highlight it, you can see that's where the reduction has taken place. I'm also going to normalize this sample. So I'm going to press process and move my data wheel a few clicks clockwise until we get to normalize. I also must remember to do the from BPM on this sample. So I need to press match, and as you can see, it's now reduced this new sample 1.22 semitones as we did with the previous one. So let's go to the main page. Now I'm going to put my sequencer into record arm mode and press play start. After the 4-beat counting, I'm just going to press this pad once on bar 1 and twice on bar 2. So that's the basic way to retime a sample by means of repitching it to get it to a given tempo. Of course, we can go the other way. Let's just change our BPM to 125. Press and hold menu, press sample edit, and now we can go to from BPM, and it's showing the correct pitch of our sample. It's 4 beats, it's minus 1.22 semitones, which makes it 100 beats per minute. And let's press match again, and now you can see it's increased the pitch by 2.64 semitones. So we don't need to do anything else. It's programmed into the sequence. This will be in time with 125, and you'll notice that the sample is naturally higher in pitch. So I'm just going to press undo and undo again and again. So we're back at 100 beats per minute, and our sample is reduced back to the pitch that works with 100 beats per minute. So what do we do then if we want to match another sample to this sample? So on pad 2, I've got this sample here. So it's a section from a Buddy Rich song. I'm not going to play too much of it just in case there's a copyright flag on this video. So let's press and hold menu, go to sample edit. And you can see again, because that was the last sample I pressed, we now have that sample as the focus sample in sample editor. So I'm going to choose a section from this sample that I want to be a loop that's going to go alongside the breakbeat. So let's just have a listen to this. So I'd actually quite like the sample to start on this section here and then do that. So I'm just going to grab this bar here. So let's just zoom in. So I'm pressing pad 1 to trigger that sample just to get it dead on. So I'm doing that by ear and by sight, obviously. And our endpoint is pretty much there. And again, we can press pad 16 to loop this over to double check that the loop sounds good. So that's not too bad. Let's press process and roll our data wheel anti-clockwise until we get to discard. Let's press do it. And again, I'm going to normalize this sample because it's relatively quiet. You don't always have to normalize, but if the sample is a lot quieter than this, then I do recommend it. Let's press process, normalize, and there you go. So let's press and hold menu, go to program edit by pressing pad 14, and there you go. We've got our Buddy Rich sample already there because this was the original sample and I discarded everything outside of it. So first of all, let's time this up, and then we can think about actually getting this to trigger from here and then this be in the second half. Because although I like the sample, I don't really want it to start from where it's currently starting here. I actually want this to start here. So there's no way that we can easily just chop this and move it in the sample editor. We have to either trigger it from 2 different pads, or we need to split the sample up and trigger it that way, etc, etc. But let's just get it timed up at the moment. So let's press and hold menu, let's go back to sample edit, and let's do that same from BPM process again. So first of all we need to detect and do it again. It's showing it as 118.01, which I believe is probably going to be half of that, so it's going to be about 59 beats per minute. So let's close that, let's go to from BPM, and as you can see, because the beats are already there selected as 4, it's showing it as 59.01. That's fine, we know the loop is good and we know that it's 59 beats per minute. So again, let's press match. And this is going to pitch this sample up quite considerably, and as you can see it has done. In the bottom left hand corner you can see it's 9.13. So let's press and hold menu, press pad 14, go to program edit. Let's just take a listen to the sample. Okay, so it sounds a bit wonky because it's quite high pitched, and that will bring me to the next section of this video where we can talk about using this sample at the original pitch but have it at this speed for this sequence, which is 100 beats per minute. Let's just try it over the top of the breakbeat. So it sounds alright, but it sounds a little bit cartoonish for my taste. But what we can do, as said, I want to have it start from here. So we can just move this up to the start of this section. Press and hold copy. Press pad 2. You can see we get this red bounding box around our pad grid. Then we just need to press the destination pad to copy it to, whilst holding copy. That will go red. Take your finger off copy, and now that's copied. So all we need to do now on pad 3 is bring this back to here and isolate that section of it. So let's now put those 2 sections of that Buddy Rich sample into our sequence. Because I don't like the pitch of these samples, and because there's not too much rhythmic content in them, we could probably get away with reducing the pitch back down to what it originally was, or there and about. So I'm going to try that now, and because we've chopped these samples, and because they're going to be slower and therefore longer than our sequence, which is 100 beats per minute, we know that they work over a bar within this sequence, so they're definitely going to work if we pitch them down. The only place that you're going to get some weird timing inconsistencies is these sections here, where you can see there's some smaller hits inside that sample. But I wouldn't get too hung up on that. I think it's more important to get your downbeat, which would be the first section of a sample, whether it's this one or this one. So this is our downbeat for this section. It's more important to get the initial hit and any bigger kind of event that happens inside a sample pretty much timed up, but there's so many ways that you can get away with things not being so exact. You don't have to be so anal about it. It's sometimes quite nice to have your musical samples a little bit loose and have your main breakbeat or drums doing all the rhythmic and precision and driving kind of stuff. So let's reduce both of these pads, 2 and 3, down -9, which was pretty much what happened in the sample editor. And now let's listen to this. And as you can see, it just does exactly what you want. I'm really not fussed about any of the little tiny little rhythmic things that might be going wrong in that sample, because we've slowed it down and therefore it's not at 100 beats per minute anymore. It really doesn't matter. So this brings me to this point. I very rarely, if ever, use warp. There's no need to use warp. It does work for some samples and you can kind of get away with it, but I've said it many times before. In my opinion, it puts too many unnatural artifacts into your sample and makes things sound a bit weird and wobbly and stretched out. You can obviously filter a lot of the high frequencies out and mask any of those weird wobbly artifacts by using a low pass filter. But in my opinion, I would much rather spend 2, 3, 4, maybe even more hours completely chopping into a sample to actually reconstruct it myself, just by chopping into it and then replacing it on the grid where it should fall to get it exactly in time. And I only usually do that when it comes to breakbeat samples. I don't really worry about that when it comes to musical samples. As I've shown you with pad 2 and pad 3 here, you can actually change the pitch and get away with quite a lot. So I'm going to erase those, so press erase and press those 2 pads. And let's see if reducing that pitch down to -9 semitones will allow us to place pad 2, our first hit, on bar 1, and place pad 3, our second hit, on bar 2. So if we wanted to use this sample at this pitch over 2 bars, as you can hear, it's too fast for the sequence, meaning that it's stopping before the end of each bar. So let's just listen to it again. Now, some people might want that little gap to give it a bit of funk. I don't mind it, but if you didn't want that to occur, this is another way that you can get your sample to last for that duration without stretching it or without doing any weird warping stuff. So again, let's press and hold menu. Let's go to program edit and let's deal with pad 2 first of all. We need to go to Lfo Modulation and we need to change the sample playback mode to note on, which will allow us to loop this sample. And let's also do that for pad 3. Let's go back to pad 2 and you can hear now that for as long as I hold this pad or tap it, we're just getting a short burst of this. That's what note on does if you haven't already used note on before. So it allows us to control the length of the sample by how long we press the pad for. But it also lets us loop a sample. So pads have to be in note on mode for you to loop them. So let's choose pad loop, which is just towards the bottom right hand corner here. And I'm going to choose the ping pong loop because it's the smoothest one. Now you'll notice that we've only got a start and an end anchor for this sample. That means we need to go up to the gear symbol in the top right hand corner of the screen and set loop lock, which is the middle option here, to off. And now you can see that we've got a third anchor point, which is our loop anchor point. So it's just a simple case of choosing a desirable place for this to start looping. So if I press and hold the pad, you can hear that that loops now. So maybe we need to move this forward a bit so we don't get that little click. It's actually at the end part of the sample. So let's move that back and move the end forward. That sounds fine to me. That's going to close the gap in our sequence. And let's just do the same for pad 3. So this one has got a definitive kind of transient or hit, which is that piano. So let's move that up to here. So once you set that loop lock in the settings up here in the top right, it's set for all pads now. So let's press pad loop. So we've got the ping pong on this as well. Okay, that might work. We could move it away from the transient of that piano, but it might be a little bit too short. It's not too bad. I'm just going to go with that. I'm sure it's going to be fine. Now, let's now go to the main page and press the grid symbol over towards the left-hand side of the screen. And this is our grid editor. And you can see that if I press either pad 2 or pad 3, which will get highlighted, or the notes of which will get highlighted. Let's see if we'll have to be kind of here to see them. Let's actually zoom vertically. So you can see pad 3 is highlighted. If I press pad 2, that will highlight any notes corresponding to pad 2 or pad 3. And you can see that the notes are really short. Because they're in note on mode, they're only going to play for the length of the note or for as long as we hold the pad. So because we've recorded them into the sequence, it's basically like we've just tapped the pad for a split second. So you can hardly hear the sample at all, they're so short. So we could manually just make sure we've selected a note. So let's grab the selection tool at the top, towards the top of the screen. Click in the grid, drag it over one of these notes, and we would choose Edit End, and we can just roll this up to the start of bar 2 or the end of bar 1. So that's one way that you can do it. You can also do this. Let's go to main page. Let's go up to the top of the screen where it says TC. That's your timing correction or quantization menu, and we need to select legato. So that is basically just going to elongate the note to the end of the sequence. It's not going to do it for the note that we want, which is our second note or pad 3, or this note here. The reason it won't do that is because legato only ties a note to any other note that comes after it. And as you can see, we don't have any notes that come after it. We've just got this, which is at the start of our sequence. So what I'm going to do is grab this one, elongate that, just to show you that's the manual way to do it. Let's reduce this back to how it was, or thereabouts. And it won't let me reduce it anymore because of our current time division. So if we press and hold our note repeat button, you can change your time divisions, or you can actually switch them off. So I've switched mine off now, and that will allow me to reduce this back to a really short note. So let's go back to main, press time correction again. We do have to switch it on, but we don't need to worry about the time division. If we press do it now, the legato will join that first pad, or pad 2, up to the start of bar 2. So let's press do it. Let's go into here, and as you can see, it's automatically elongated this note. So if you've got a load of notes that you want to tie together, all bar the last note in your sequence because it won't have another note to tie to, that's how you tie your notes together if they're in note on mode. Even in one-shot mode, those notes will elongate if you choose legato. I only ever use it when I've got pads that are in note on mode, because obviously if I want them to play for the full length, that's how it's going to happen. So now our sequence sounds like this. So just be aware that there's so many different situations that you're going to be faced with where you're going to think to yourself, how do I time that sample up? I've shown you some basic methods in this video. If you're trying to use a musical sample that hasn't really got a particular rhythm, don't worry about it. Just chop it at the transients and then find a way to rhythmically time it with your beat, and it will work. You can loop up the sample, which I've shown you. Choose your loop method, whether it's ping pong or forward. As said, ping pong is the smoothest way, and you'll find a way to get those samples timed up to your main beat and vice versa. So thanks for watching. If you want private tuition, please contact me at tubedigga@gmail.com and we can organise a Zoom lesson. If you're interested in my masterclass video course, it's www.tubedigga.com/MPC masterclass. I've also got a discount code to give you 20% off. That's all caps MPC masterclass 20. All the links for all that stuff is in the description of this video. I'll see you on the next one. This is Tubedigga, and I'm out.